My name is Jennifer. I never thought I would share my story, but after what Jesus showed me during my death moment, I realized I didn't have a choice. What I saw was too crucial to keep to myself, particularly given the times we're living in. It happened on the 11th of November in 2024. I was driving home from my nursing shift at St. John's Hospital. It had been an exhausting day, and I was eagerly looking forward to returning home to my husband and our kids. The last thing I remember was seeing headlights approaching me on that rain-slicked highway. Suddenly, everything changed. The doctors eventually told my loved ones that I was clinically dead for 6 minutes and 28 seconds. But where I ended up during those moments, it felt like forever. And what Jesus revealed to me about the coming deception, about how people will accept the mark without knowing it, it still torments me to my heart. Just moments after the crash, I could feel myself floating above my body. I witnessed the paramedics struggling desperately to save me, yet I felt no pain, no panic, just a deep sense of serenity. I watched as they put my broken body into the ambulance, their gestures urgent but competent. One of them, a young guy with gentle eyes, was praying under his breath as he worked. I wished to tell him it was all right, that I was not feeling much pain anymore. But of course I could not. That is when all that around me started to be illuminated with light. It wasn't like sunlight or artificial light. It was real, living light that appeared to emanate from everywhere and nowhere immediately. The scene with the paramedics vanished, and I found myself being lifted upward, overwhelmed by this immense radiance. That's when I heard his voice. "Jennifer," he said, and my soul shivered with recognition. It was Jesus Christ, and even though I couldn't see his face well initially due to the enormous light, I felt that it was him with every fiber of my body. His presence was full of such love, such power, that tears flooded down my spiritual face. As my eyes adjusted to the light, I started to see him clearly enough. His appearance was both familiar and strange. His eyes conveyed a profundity of love and understanding that I felt completely understood. Every sin, every uncertainty, and every concern I would ever have was laid bare before him, but his love remained constant. "My child," he said, "I have brought you here for a reason. What I am going to show you has to be shared with my people. Many people are asleep, and the deception coming is more severe than they think." I found myself able to speak, but not with physical words. "Lord," I responded, "I'm just a nurse by profession. Who will be listening to me?" His smile was soft yet firm. "I have always used humility to confound those who are wise. Don't worry about who will listen. You must share what I show you. I will take care of the rest." With those words, Jesus held my hand, and immediately we were standing on what looked to be a normal city street. But yet I knew we were viewing events from the very near future. Everything seemed nearly the same as our world today, but there were slight differences. "Watch attentively," Jesus instructed, "and see how the adversary can deceive even the chosen one if it were possible." The sight before us was bustling with movement. People were walking around, carrying on with their everyday lives, but there was something unusual about them. Everybody appeared to be interacting with technology in a way that was considerably more integrated than whatever I'd seen before. I saw a lady enter into a restaurant. She did not take out a phone or card to pay. She just waved her hand over a sensor, and the transaction was done. A bit of light under her skin shone momentarily as she did this. "Lord," I asked, "is this the mark of the beast?" "No," Jesus responded, "that is what comes before." See how the deception evolves. The scene changed, and I saw many manifestations of how this technology had been slowly introduced globally. It began innocently enough. Tiny chips that replaced credit cards, house keys, and medical data. Everyone embraced them, including Christians, regarding them as nothing more than helpful instruments for modern society. I witnessed as congregations of churches accepted these technologies sincerely. They used them for accessing their digital Bibles, donating tithes, and checking into church activities. Nobody questioned it since it did not involve worship or swearing loyalty to anything or anybody. It was only technology, or so they believed. "Notice," Jesus said, his voice full of anxiety, "how the enemy initially introduces things that look innocent, even useful. Satan knows that an unexpected change would alert my people. Rather, he creeps gently, slowly, like a snake gradually coiling around its victim. The show went on to unfold before us. Technology got more advanced, becoming more integrated into everyday life. Devices were monitoring health, detecting illness before it occurred, and even managing people's sleeping patterns and moods through small biochemical changes. "My child," Jesus said, sensing how excited I was at these achievements, "remember that not all that glitters is gold." The adversary knows how to arrange his deceptions in attractive wrapping. I watched as parents eagerly had their kids implanted with these electronic devices. "It's for their safety," they would say. "Now we can always know exactly where they are, check their health, and ensure their safety in school." The technology was primarily promoted toward children, highlighted as a tool for protecting them in an increasingly dangerous world. "Lord," I said, "I understand how beneficial this all seems. How do we advise people against something that looks to do so much good?" Jesus looked at me with immense sorrow in his eyes. "This is the reason why deception is so powerful. The adversary knows that my people would turn down something obviously evil. So he comes as an angel of light, providing remedies to challenges, promising to make life better." I noticed how technology started to influence people's behavior in small ways. Those having the implants were gradually dependent on them for everything, from managing their emotions to making decisions. The electronic devices would recommend what to eat, when to go to bed, whom to spend your time with, and even what to think about particular issues. "Watch this closely," Jesus said, drawing my attention to a family enjoying dinner. The scenario showed parents and kids sitting together, but something was odd. Their conversations looked planned, their emotions estimated and controlled. The devices were lightly changing their moods, their ideas, and their very personalities. "Can't they see what's going on to them?" I asked, my heart breaking at the sight. "They consider only the benefits," Jesus said. "They see better health, increased stability, and more convenience. They don't understand they are their own free will, their capacity to choose me freely. For these momentary benefits." The vision switched to show me different scenes from all over the world. I witnessed how the technology was being used differently in various societies, but always with the same fundamental goal: to establish dependency and control. In certain places, it was promoted through healthcare systems, in others through financial incentives, and in still others through societal expectations and the fear of being left behind. But everywhere, the message was the same. This is development, this is necessary, this is wonderful. I noticed that people who questioned the technology were sidelined. They were characterized as conspiracy theorists, anti-progress, or just fearful of change. Even in churches, people who showed concern were usually considered as being paranoid or lacking faith in God's protection. "My people are dying for lack of understanding," Jesus said, quoting the scripture. "They have forgotten that I advised them to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. They adopted the wisdom of this world and ignored the wisdom that comes from heaven." The situation changed again, and I witnessed how technology was influencing children's development. Young ones who grew up with these implants showed slight, but significant distinctions from those without them. Their potential for independent thought, for real emotion, for divine sensitivity, all were weakened. "The adversary targets the young," Jesus said, "as they will accept without questioning what their elders might scrutinize." An entire generation is being prepared to embrace what is coming. I witnessed education systems changing around this modern technology. Children were educated that implants were part of who they were, equally natural as any other part of their body. They were taught to follow the guidance of their devices above their own intuition, above the advice of their parents' wisdom, and eventually above the word of God. "Lord," I said, my voice shaking, "this is horrible. How can anyone not see where this is leading?" "Because," Jesus responded, "they look with physical eyes, not their spiritual eyes. They perceive the superficial benefits, but not the spiritual cost. They recognize the transitory benefits, but not the eternal implications." The scene before us immediately shifted tremendously. I saw destruction exploding around the world. Banks collapsing, electricity networks crumbling, supply lines breaking down. People were frightened and desperate for solutions. "Watch now," Jesus said, "because this is how the mark will be introduced." I saw world leaders showing up on televisions everywhere, giving a new solution. The present technology that everyone was dependent on would have to be updated to a new, more secure system. They termed it an important move to prevent further disasters. Pay close attention, Jesus added, to how they will deliver it. I watched as media sources promoted the improvement. It was promoted to be the next version of what consumers already had. Religious leaders showed up on television, telling their followers that it was merely technology, not the mark of the beast. They highlighted that it didn't need worshiping anybody or giving loyalty to any leadership. Now, Jesus continued, I will show you what nobody can see. Immediately, I began to sense the spiritual world alongside the physical. What I saw terrified me. As people received the improvement, a creeping gloom invaded their spirits. It wasn't clear at first. They could still pray, still attend church, even read their Bibles, but something was different. The mark, Jesus added, will not be imposed with violence initially. It will be received gladly, even excitedly. The enemy has learned that punishment only makes my people stronger. Rather, he will use deception, which makes the mark appear like a natural, good move ahead. I observed as weeks and months progressed in the vision. People who had accepted the update began to shift in subtle ways. Their prayers grew more mechanical, less sincere. Their devotion became more about habit than relationships. Additionally, their capacity to discern spiritual truth began to diminish. Lord, I asked, why can't they understand what's happening to them? Because the change is slow, he provided. Like a frog in delicately heated water. They are unaware that they're being cut off from my spirit until it is too late. The vision showed me how the improvement influenced many facets of society. In medical services, it promised perfect health monitoring and automated medical treatment. In finance, it promised perfect security and unrestricted access to resources. In relationships, it is claimed to encourage greater understanding and communication. But what broke my heart was seeing families make a decision together. Parents would sit down with their children, explaining how this improvement will keep them safe, help them succeed in education, and guarantee their future in the modern world system. They truly felt they were doing what was best for their kids. Watch attentively, Jesus suggested. Look how they will use fear to force those who are reluctant. I watched news headlines about children being denied education, about people losing employment, and about families being unable to afford food or medicine. The pressure to accept the upgrade got enormous. Churches disagreed on this issue, with most leaders claiming approval to retain their witness in society. My child, Jesus said, his voice full of sadness, do you see how the enemy takes advantage of good intentions to lead people wrongfully? They believe they are making intelligent choices and being responsible citizens and parents, but they truly are choosing to cut themselves off from me. The vision switched to show me the technology itself. It was not simply a physical implant anymore. It had become connected with human consciousness. People's opinions, emotions, and even their potential for spiritual connection were being affected. This is the real danger, Jesus said. The mark doesn't only change the things people can buy or sell. It changes who they are. It manipulates the image of God in which they were created. I witnessed how the upgrading affected various generations drastically. The elderly generally resisted, initially remembering simpler moments. The middle-aged often embraced it for practical reasons. But the young, they embraced it passionately, seeing it as the next step in human progress. Lord, I asked, what happened to the people who accepted this upgrade? Jesus' perspective was sincere, as he showed me the spiritual implications. People who take it happily seal their eternal fate. This upgrade doesn't only evolve their bodies, it profoundly affects their capacity to connect with me. They can no longer sense the conviction of the divine spirit or understand spiritual reality. I watched in shock as people who had formerly been enthusiastic believers slowly became spiritually numb. Their words could still sound holy, but their hearts had become hardened. They could quote scripture, but were unable to sense its power. They talked about God, but were unable to hear his voice. But Lord, I asked, what about the people who resist? The scene changed, and I witnessed another group. People who rejected the upgrade. They encountered increased challenges. They couldn't buy food from ordinary supermarkets or send their kids to public schools. Others lost their employment, but spiritually, they were glowing like lights in the mass darkness. "These are my faithful ones," Jesus said with great love in his words. "They can see what other people cannot since they have kept their spiritual eyes intact. They have studied my word and learned how to differentiate truth from deception." I watched as these Christians established communities, supporting one another, sharing resources, and assisting people who were having difficulty. They weren't aggressive or fearful. They were peaceful but determined in their conviction. What should people watch for? I asked. How can they detect this when it started? First, watch for technology that claims to make you greater than how I created you. The adversary will promise developments to the human mind and body, yet these will come with a price to the soul. Second, notice when convenience gets compulsory. What starts as optional gradually becomes necessary for everyday life. Third, pay close attention to the way the technology affects children. The adversary targets the young, believing they are going to accept effortlessly what their parents would doubt. Fourth, observe how it influences people's connection with me. Anything that diminishes spiritual sensibility, that makes prayer feel aloof, that diminishes the conviction of sin. These are warnings. Then Jesus showed me something wonderful during all this darkness. I saw light breaking through. People who rejected the mark were being protected and provided for in extraordinary ways. They had a tranquility that made no sense in their situation. My people will not be abandoned, Jesus told me. Just as I provided for Elijah by the stream and for the Israelites in the wilderness, I will provide for the people who are faithful to me. I saw angels surrounding the houses of Christians, safeguarding them from harm. I saw amazing provision, food increasing and needs being provided in strange ways. Most significantly, I watched their connections with Jesus grow more profound and stronger through their trials. Lord, I asked, what should people do to prepare? Jesus' response was simple. Tell them to foster a connection with me today before the deception arrives. They must know my voice so deeply that they can tell when anything is not from me. Tell them to read my word diligently. The answers are there, but they need to know the truth to figure out the deceptions. Tell them to create genuine connections with other believers. They will need one another in the years to come. Tell them to educate their children to love me more than they enjoy the world's pleasures. And most significantly, tell them not to worry. I triumphed over the world, and the people who stay faithful to me will share in that victory. Abruptly, I felt a pulling sensation. It's time for you to return, Jesus said. Remember everything you have seen. But Lord, I cried, there's a lot more I would like to ask. His smile was filled with love. What I have shown you is enough. Share it faithfully. Those who have ears to hear will listen. The next thing I knew, I was back in my body, surrounded by hospital tools and worried faces. The doctors were speechless at my recovery, but I was more surprised by what I had seen. If you're watching this and feeling scared, don't be. Christ showed me that his protection and love for his faithful ones will be more than enough. Concentrate on strengthening your connection with him now, while there's still time, and remember his words, I conquered the world. The deception may be tremendous, but our God is bigger. Stay close to him, and you won't be deceived. This is my story. Jesus Christ, give you eyes to see and ears to hear what the Spirit speaks to the churches in these final days.